Stop the tape. Stop it right now. Dr. Phil's voice cut through the studio like a knife. For the first time in 23 seasons, he raised his hand to halt the cameras mid-recording. The woman sitting across from him, trembling, envelope clutched in white-knuckled hands, looked up with eyes that had just seen her entire world collapse. The studio audience, 200 people who'd come expecting the usual family drama, sat frozen in collective shock. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Because what had just been revealed wasn't supposed to happen on television. It wasn't supposed to happen at all. What was inside that envelope would expose a 40-year lie, and Dr. Phil himself wouldn't see it coming. 3 hours earlier, Rebecca Walsh walked into the studio believing she was here for a family estate dispute. Her father had passed 6 months ago, leaving what everyone believed was a modest inheritance. But Rebecca's stepmother Linda had been blocking access to everything. "She won't even let me see the will," Rebecca had told the producer. "My dad raised me alone after my mom died when I was 7. And now this woman, who he only married 5 years ago, is acting like I don't exist." Nobody had bothered to look deeper. That was the first mistake. When the cameras started rolling, Dr. Phil opened directly. "Rebecca, you believe your stepmother is keeping you from your rightful inheritance. Correct?" "Yes. My father worked his entire life. He always told me he wanted to make sure I was taken care of. But Linda won't tell me anything." Dr. Phil turned to the monitor where Linda's attorney, Gerald Hutchins, appeared. "Counselor, what's your client's position?" "Dr. Phil, my client is following the explicit instructions left by Mr. Walsh in his will." "Has Rebecca been provided a copy of her father's will?" Dr. Phil's tone sharpened. "She has not, because—" "Why not?" "She's the man's daughter. She has a legal right." Hutchins shifted uncomfortably. "There are complications that my client wishes to address privately before." "Complications?" Dr. Phil leaned forward. "What complications justify keeping a daughter in the dark about her own father's final wishes?" The attorney's pause lasted too long. Dr. Phil caught it immediately. "Counselor, is there something in that will you don't want Rebecca to see?" Another pause. "Dr. Phil, I think this conversation should happen off camera." "No." "You're on camera right now. Answer the question." The studio went silent. Hutchins cleared his throat. "The will contains information that may be distressing to Ms. Walsh." "Show me the will." Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. "Right now." Dr. Phil turned to his production assistant. "Andrea, can we get a copy?" "We have it," Andrea called. "The attorney's office sent it this morning. Our legal team flagged something unusual." Dr. Phil paused. "What do you mean, unusual?" "They asked me to pull it for you before the segment." Dr. Phil made a decision that would become one of the most powerful moments in daytime television. "Bring it here. Now." Andrea emerged carrying a manila envelope. She handed it to Dr. Phil and whispered something the microphones didn't catch. Dr. Phil's expression changed. He looked at Rebecca, then at the envelope. For the first time in his career, he looked uncertain. "Rebecca, before we open this, I need to ask you something." "Whatever is in here, do you want to know? Because once you know, you can't unknow it. What could be worse than what I'm imagining?" Dr. Phil didn't answer. He opened the envelope and began to read. His jaw tightened. When he reached the 3rd page, he stopped completely. "Stop the tape. Stop it right now." The cameras stopped. The red recording lights went dark. This was no longer entertainment. Dr. Phil walked to Rebecca and knelt beside her chair. He spoke quietly. Whatever he said made her face go white. She shook her head. "No. That's not possible. I need you to listen carefully," Dr. Phil said. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything. We can do this here, with support, or backstage where it's private. But you need to know the truth. Tell me." Her voice broke. "Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead." Dr. Phil returned to his chair. This document was filed 6 weeks before your father passed. Rebecca, your father left you $370,000. Rebecca's mouth opened in shock. That's impossible. He didn't have. Your stepmother Linda receives nothing. Everything goes to you. Rebecca looked confused. Why would Linda's lawyer fight this? Dr. Phil's expression darkened. Because that's not the complicated part. He held up the third page. Your father included a confession. Dr. Phil read from the document. Rebecca, by the time you read this, I will be gone. The money I'm leaving you did not come from my factory job. It came from a settlement. 20 years ago, I was involved in a car accident. I was drinking. I hit another vehicle. A woman named Sarah Mitchell died. She left behind a husband and a 6-year-old daughter. Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth. I was never charged. But I knew what I'd done. 3 years ago, I tracked down Sarah Mitchell's family. Her daughter Claire was struggling. Medical debt. Student loans. Working 3 jobs. I've been sending her money anonymously. $5,000 a month. She never knew where it came from. The audience gasped. Rebecca, the money I'm leaving you is what remained. I'm asking you to continue what I started. Claire Mitchell deserves the truth. She deserves an apology. And she deserves this money. I'm sorry I was too much of a coward to tell you while I was alive. I love you. Dad. Dr. Phil set the document down. Rebecca was sobbing. The entire audience was in tears. So that's why Linda's attorney was stalling, Dr. Phil said. Linda knew about the confession. Rebecca could barely speak. There's a woman who lost her mother because of my dad. And she doesn't know. No. She doesn't. Your father tried to help anonymously, but he never gave her what she needed, the truth. Rebecca looked devastated. How do I face her? How do I tell her? But what happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. Dr. Phil stood. He turned to Andrea. Bring her in. The audience stirred. Andrea disappeared backstage and returned with a young woman in her late 20s. She looked nervous. Rebecca's eyes widened. Is that Claire Mitchell? Dr. Phil confirmed. She's here. She doesn't know why yet. Claire approached cautiously. Dr. Phil guided her to the chair next to Rebecca. Claire, thank you for coming. I know you're wondering what this is about. The producer said someone wanted to reveal themselves. Claire trailed off, noticing Rebecca's tears. Is everything okay? Dr. Phil made a choice that would define his legacy. Claire, what I'm about to tell you is the hardest thing you've ever heard. We have counselors standing by. But there's a truth that's been kept from you for 20 years. Claire's smile faded. What are you talking about? Dr. Phil explained everything. The accident. Rebecca's father. The anonymous payments. The confession. Claire's expression moved through shock, disbelief, anger, devastation. When Dr. Phil finished, Claire turned slowly to look at Rebecca. Your father killed my mother. Yes. Rebecca's voice was barely audible. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know until 5 minutes ago. My mother died when I was 6 years old. Claire's voice shook. I barely remember her. But I remember the police coming. I remember my father collapsing. I thought whoever did this must have been punished. Must have suffered like we suffered. She looked at Dr. Phil. But they didn't. He walked away. He went home to his daughter while my father drank himself to death by the time I was 12. While I grew up in foster care. While I worked 3 jobs just to survive. The studio was completely silent. And then he had the audacity to send me money? Like that could fix it? Claire's voice rose. But you know what the worst part is? That money saved my life. It paid for my surgery. My student loans. And now I find out it was blood money. She turned back to Rebecca. But it wasn't your guilt. You didn't know. I didn't. Rebecca whispered. I'm so sorry. I don't hate you, Claire said quietly. I don't even know you. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Dr. Phil leaned forward. Ladies, what happens next is up to you. Claire, you have every right to pursue justice. Rebecca, you inherited money connected to tragedy. Here's what I propose, off-camera counseling. Talk through this with professionals. Then decide together what happens with that money. Rebecca nodded immediately. It's yours. All of it. I don't want it, Claire said flatly. Then we donate it. Dr. Phil suggested. In your mother's name. We set up a foundation. We help other victims of drunk driving. For the first time, something flickered in Claire's expression. Perhaps the beginning of a path forward. Can I tell you something? Claire said, looking at Rebecca. When my father died, I was 12 years old and completely alone. And I remember thinking that whoever killed my mother must have had a family too. Must have had people who loved them. And I remember hoping that those people were okay. Because even though I was angry, even though I was destroyed, I didn't want more people to feel the way I felt. She wiped her eyes. So no, I don't hate you. I just wish none of this had happened. Me too, Rebecca whispered. Dr. Phil did something then that he rarely does. He stood up, walked to the small table between the two women, and picked up the manila envelope, the one that had started all of this. He held it up so the audience could see. This envelope, he said, contained the truth. And the truth destroyed 2 lives 20 years ago. It shattered a family. It created pain that echoes forward to this very moment. But here's what I want everyone watching to understand. The truth also creates the possibility of healing. He looked at Claire. You now know what happened to your mother. You know the real story, not the version you've been telling yourself for 2 decades. And that truth is brutal. It's unfair. It's enraging. But it's also complete. You don't have to wonder anymore. He turned to Rebecca. And you now know your father wasn't the man you thought he was. He made a catastrophic mistake. He compounded it with cowardice. But in his last years he tried, inadequately, incompletely, but genuinely, to make some kind of amends. That doesn't erase what he did. But it means he wasn't a monster. He was a broken man trying to fix something unfixable. Dr. Phil set the envelope down. The question now is, what do you do with this truth? Because you can let it destroy you, or you can use it to build something better. He addressed the audience directly. How many of you are carrying secrets that would change everything if they came out? Dozens of hands slowly rose. How many of you know that someone in your life is hiding something important? More hands. Truth is terrifying. But lies are toxic. And eventually, they poison everything they touch. 2 months later, they returned. Rebecca and Claire created the Sarah Mitchell Foundation with the entire inheritance. Every dollar went to families affected by drunk driving. We're not friends, Claire said carefully. But we're connected. And we're doing something meaningful together. Dr. Phil held up the envelope one final time. This is what happens when secrets come into the light. It's painful. It's complicated. But it's the only way forward. He looked into the camera. If you're holding a secret that could hurt someone, tell them. If you're carrying guilt, confess it. There is no perfect moment. There's only now. Then he did something no one expected. Dr. Phil walked over to Rebecca and Claire. He placed the manila envelope on the table between them. This belongs to both of you now. What was once a symbol of shame has become a symbol of courage. Your father's cowardice became your bravery. His silence became your voice. He turned to the audience. 20 years ago, a man made a choice to hide the truth. Today, his daughter made a choice to face it. That's the difference between destruction and redemption. That's the difference between letting pain define you and letting it refine you. Claire reached across and took Rebecca's hand. It was the first time they'd touched. The studio erupted in applause, not the polite kind, but the kind that comes from witnessing something genuinely transformative. Dr. Phil's voice cut through the emotion. This envelope will stay in our archive. Not as a reminder of what went wrong, but as proof that when truth meets courage, healing becomes possible. Even when it seems impossible. He looked directly into the camera one last time, his voice steady and powerful. To everyone watching, your secrets are heavier than your truth. The courage to face them is the first step to freedom. And that freedom, painful as it is to earn, is worth everything. The screen faded to black as Rebecca and Claire sat together, the envelope between them, no longer a weapon but a bridge.